Welcome to the Illustrator tutorial videos for the pewter casting task. In this one, I'm going to go through one method of drawing your own design in Illustrator. Okay, now, at this point, you should already have had your document set up and looking like this, as according to the other video that I have created already for you. Now, I'm going to start with a bit of a caveat here that Illustrator is not a software program I know how to use very well. So there may be things happen along the way that I'm not 100% on. So hopefully we'll get through it all without too many interruptions and disruptions. If you are someone who knows how to use Illustrator reasonably well, and you know how to use different tools to achieve what you want to achieve other than what I'm going to be showing you today, that's perfectly fine for you to use. The main thing to remember though is that you want to end up with at least one line that's a solid outline, and that in order to make it easy for you to see what's going on, you want to have all of your lines with no fill and just your stroke being as small as possible, which I'll explain how to do using the tool that I am going to show you in a minute anyway. Don't worry about trying to colour in the bits that you want to engrave or anything like that, the computer will organise all of that later on, and all that does usually is ends up with some extra lines in there that we actually don't want to have cut. Okay, so we're not going to worry about that at all. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to show you is I'm going to get a rectangle or a square set up in here to give it an idea of the kind of size or area that our shape should, or the maximum size that it should be. So I'm going to use my shape tool here, and I just want a rectangle. So I'm going to click on that, come over here, and create a rectangle. Now I can click and drag, or I can just click once and this brings this up here. And I want that to be 25 by 25. And that is okay. And that's now created that there. Now with a lot of my tools, if I hold down Control, it does something else, and this way it allows me to just use one of my selection tools to make that just a smidge bit more central for me to appease my brain. So that's nice. If I click and drag, I can then use the fact that it's already selected to resize it over here. Okay, once I have that, I want to just deselect out of that so I don't have that selected. And you can see that that's already come up with no fill, a nice thin stroke in black already for me. I'm going to be using the pencil tool to do my, my shape drawing. So I've got underneath the paintbrush tool here is where I'll find the pencil tool. So I can just go down and click on that. And this is going to allow me to draw, and then it's going to kind of make my shape a lot smoother than whatever it is that I've actually drawn. So it's going to average it out along that path to make it look a bit neater, and then I can add things to it, modify the line, etc. from there. So again, over here in my tool, I have got no fill. I have the stroke setting as black and as small as I can make it so that it's clear for me to be able to see what lines I'm drawing in, where they connect to each other, etc. It's still going to be thicker than the vector line because the vector line essentially has no thickness to it. But that's okay, we don't have to worry about that. Okay, so you can see next to my cursor I've got this little asterisk. I hope you can see that anyway. It's going to be useful for you to be able to see. And I'm going to draw a shape. Now I'm not going to draw a shape that is a square kind of shape. Mine's more rectangular, so I'm going to go out a bit wider than my actual square, but I'm not going to go anywhere near as tall. Okay, and hopefully this doesn't look horrible because I'm definitely not a drawer either. Okay, so I'm going to draw this shape. And something like that. Okay, now as I got close to that point where my other line was, you'll see that instead of having an asterisk there, it became a circle. And that's going, okay, if you let go now, it's actually going to close. Okay, we'll close that gap. Now, if I really dislike part of my design, I think I didn't do this bit here very well, I can go close to my line and the asterisk disappears, and I can actually redraw that, provided that I end up finishing at my line as well. Okay, so if I desperately want to redraw it rather than just correcting some of my lines, then that's what I can do. Now, if I actually want to add extra parts on, sometimes you can do that with correcting your line, and it's worth trying that and then undoing if it doesn't work. So we're going to do that. I'm going to try adding in the top fin outline of my little fishy. You can see that's cut that in nicely. But sometimes trying to do my fin doesn't always work. I didn't like that anyway. I'm just going to redo that as a slightly nicer shape. Sometimes that makes that too curvy and it doesn't always work. Okay, now I'm just going to actually undo that and show you how to do one maybe you don't want how it's doing that, and you have a second drawing that you want to do. So I'm just going to click off that to deselect it, and now my pencil tool doesn't actually connect to it at all. Okay, so I'm going to draw in a fin shape again for my bottom fin, and now I have some lines there, but I don't need this extra line. I want just the outline of it so that when I do my engraving it comes in really nicely. I just want to zoom in for this. I'm going to use my Control Plus on my keyboard to zoom in, okay, so I can see what's going on. I'm going to use my selection tool and just select this outside path there because I want to be able to cut those. Actually, I want to move these endpoints first, so I need to use my direct selection tool instead of my standard selection tool, so I can select the anchors and move them to intersect with the path. Okay, the other path below there. I can also use this if I want to move parts of my drawing around to look nicer and have those lines maybe a bit neater from what I want. Might come up and do some of that here, maybe get that smoothed out a little bit, okay, or even delete a few anchors in there if necessary. Okay, oh, undo. Sometimes these lines don't behave the way we want them to make it look nice and neat. Yeah, that's all right, my fishy doesn't need to be perfect. Okay, so how do I then get rid of this part of the line here? So I want to select that, and then I'm going to go down to where my erase tool is and hold that down to get to my scissors tool. Now this is a little bit finicky, and it will only work for intersection points, not the end point of your line. So that should show up next to it. I don't know if you can see that, where it says intersect. So when it says that, I'm going to click there, I'm going to come over here and click again where intersect is, and it should then just show that that part of my line is selected, or it should show that maybe the rest of my line, but not that bit, is selected. So then I can click off and select that bit and then press delete. Okay, and now I have got, if I was to select this, my outside selection, and then the fin here is not selected yet. So I do want to join these together. So I'm going to hold my shift key down and click on that part as well. And rather than grouping, I actually want to join. So I'm going to right click on that, and then there's an option in the drop down menu here that says join. If I go off that and then click on that again, it may or may not have joined, but it now has an option over here to the side saying joined. It looks like it's joined, but I'm just going to do that anyway so that I know for sure that that has now become one path. Now sometimes it does do funky things. You'll see there's a little extra bit going on down here. So we're going to zoom in again. Now if I want to move around, my scrolling on the mouse goes up and down, and if I hold down my shift, not my shift key, my space bar, that brings up my pan option. And I can actually just play with some of these in the direct selection tool again to get that, anchor set so that we don't have that funny little bit sticking up there without changing and affecting my shape too much. Okay, so zooming out again. Now I want to give my little fishy an eye, so I'm going to go back to my pencil tool and just draw in a rough kind of eye shape. That did not look like it worked well. Let's go and have a look at what's going on. Okay, so I didn't quite make that work, so I'm just going to undo and try drawing that again. Now, because as I got close, that circle's appeared and it's made that a nice loop for me. And I'm happy with that for my my fish's eye. Okay, so Alt, Shift and A is deselect if you ever want to know that. Go back to my selection tool. If I'm happy with my design, I probably wouldn't be with this one. I'd probably want to do a few more things to it. But assuming that I was happy with it now, I could delete my rectangle. Okay, my square from around there. I don't want that to be in place. Okay, I have this as a solid line. I have another solid line here. I know it's going to work for what I need. Now, if I did want to add other text in or other shapes in, I could absolutely do that from this point onwards. Again, don't forget though to always make sure that you have your appearance over here with no fill, black stroke, and as thin as possible with the 0.25 point so that you can clearly see where the lines are going to be. Okay, so from this point, I can then use, if you want to know a bit more about adding text in, you can have a watch of the internet raster-based image one, because I go through text in that one. Okay. So now we need to save it in Illustrator anyway, in case you need to do any extra changes to it for making it work properly. It's always easier if you have it actually saved as an Illustrator file to do that, rather than trying to get your DXF one open in here and isolating different parts for it and all the rest. But once you've done that, you can then export it. Okay, so you're going to go down from File to Export As, and you're going to have your save thing come up here. Click on the best location to actually save that into. Okay, so where you're going to find it later on. Give it a good file name. I'm going to call this one Fishy. Okay, and then you need to save it as an actual DXF. Now that should be the top option anyway, and it's usually the default file type for the export in Illustrator. So make sure it's saving as a .dxf, and then you can click Export. Now this next little option button comes up here, and in that, make sure you have the 2018 one. That should be fine for what we are doing here. Now, if you haven't already done this, go down and click on the outline text thing if you have text in your design. Okay, if you don't, then don't stress about that either, then click OK. And that's now exported as a file format that you're going to be able to open up in your AutoCAD template to organize it for laser cutting. Alright, so that's it for this video. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.